Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're going to do the Q&A for the 7k subscriber thank you. Now we're going to be taking questions from this video, also a community post that I did, and also the Discord. We're going to go through all of them. It's going to take quite a long time, but I think it's worth it. I have a bit of time to kill, and some of the questions, or most of the questions, are really interesting. So this is for the 7k subscriber. There will be another one for the 8k, which is fastly approaching actually, which is really nice to see. But right now, let's just get into the questions and answer all of your stuff which is about. So we're going to go newest first on this. Christopher Samba, what are your thoughts on the BF109 K14? So I had a look at what the K14 was, as you can see in the top bars. Now, the K14 seems to be a proposed prototype of a fighter which had an up-engine, it's basically an up-engine version of a K4 with different armaments. So there was one which was proposed to have the MK103, one proposed which had two MK108s, and another which was proposed to have three MK108s, two in the wings and one in the nose. Now, according to this post on the forums by Messerschmitt, who is a lad who is, well known in the community, it did see combat. Now, from my preliminary reading of some of these sources, such as this one, here, it does seem that it did at some point see combat in a prototype stage, basically by the end of the war. You can understand that a lot of the time Germany was trying to just get everything they could up in the air. And this seems to be something that says that it happened. So let's talk about it from the point of view of putting it into the game. So the K14 is seen to be one of those machines which could actually help out rank 4 aircraft for Germany. One of the biggest issues that we have with Germany at the moment is you have all of these aircraft around the 5.3, 5.7 range, such as the late tier Focke-Wulfs, the BF109s, and the issue is that they can't break into the superprop era of stuff like the Mark 22, Mark 24, the P51H, and the likes. Russia has a very similar issue in this regard, where their best fighter is the premium, the Yak-3 VK, and the LA-9 really doesn't stand up to the superprops that we've seen added to the game as recently as the P51H. I mean, you could even go back to the Tiger Cat and say that machine was pretty much outdoing a lot of these German planes and Russian planes as well. We've also got a few Japanese superprops. Italy has the G56, which, I mean, they have the same issue that Germany has. And France, well, they have exactly the same issue, unless they want to start porting over more American planes to give them some superprops. Their superprop was technically the VB that we have in the tree, so yeah, as simple as that, really. Oh, by the way, before we go on, Matrix actually helped me fix the camera, so hopefully the camera won't freeze. I still will be checking the video in OBS during this, just because this is more of a casual thing, but hopefully going on, the camera shouldn't freeze. I do have a few things to show you. Now, generally what I do during these Q&As is talk about the books that I've been reading, and I just want to make sure I line it up with the camera, so you're going to have to see many of me here. The first one is The Victory in World War II, The Allies' Defeat of the Axis Forces. This is by Nigel Cawthorne. There we go, right there. And this book is a very general book. It is quite big, as you can see, but the issue with it is it is incredibly general. What I personally like is I have a book which is as thick as this on just Kursk, and for me that's kind of what I prefer from a book point of view. I prefer a book which goes really into detail on one subject, whereas this is much more of a general one across, different battles and different operations from, basically D-Day and onwards. The second book that I've been reading is actually a World War I book. So this is done by Stephen Bull. Both of these were picked up in the discount section of my local chapters. The Trench book was $15, so quite pricey, but it is really good quality, really nice pictures and all that. and the Victory in World War II one was $5 or $6. So we're not talking about, breaking banks here if you want to, get these books. I'm sure you can find them on Amazon as well if you're not in Canada. So this is a history of trench warfare on the Western Front, as you can see here. It is written by Stephen Bull, and once again, it is very much a generalized book on the war in, the trench warfare on the Western Front. So what we're talking about there is pretty much the French battles between the British, the French, and the Germans. It is a very general book, once again, and not typically my style, but because I know less about World War One, I think it fits a little bit better for me personally. For a person who knows a lot about World War One, it may not be the book for you. You may want to see or have a look at something which is a little bit more in-depth on certain issues, like if you want to read about certain battles. But this is a book which, if you want to know more about World War One, especially the Western Front, I would say definitely pick this up. This is a really good buy in that respect. It's the most expensive book I've picked up for maybe 2 years, because I generally just shop in the discount stuff or try and get books for free. But I would say it's worth it for me personally. Going back to the K-14. So yeah, the biggest issue for the Germans is the fact that they don't have a super prop. Now, is this K-14 a super prop on the levels of the Mark 22, 24, P-51H? No, I don't think so. But it does have a more powerful engine, and it does have a decent amount of armament. So if it can be proven to be built, which I believe it can, and believe to be tested, which I believe it also can, then why not stick it in the game? I mean, the German hull, which is 5.3 to around about 7.0 or 5.7 to 7.0, is quite gigantic, especially after the Focke-Wulf changes that came in a long time ago, and also the new jets put in, which haven't really addressed the issue. Now we're just left with a situation where if you play super props for Britain or America, you either get up-tiered into jets or you get down-tiered and you annihilate. It would be nice to see they then bridge the gap in rank 4 Germans, and the K-14 seems to be something which, you could definitely do that with, which is kind of nice. So nice question. This is from Joel Ackers, and yeah, he asked me in the the community thing where to find this. So this is quite a long one. What you think the replacement should be for the Tiger II 105 and the Panther II? I'm not fussed about this, as I have them both. I've read a lot of people saying Prototype Leopard and even Lend-Lease T-54s, odd considering the BR difference there. I'm eager to see what they have to implement there. Number 2, as that the Russian Q&A suggested, they have the T-62M ready to go and the T-80. What do you think will possibly go in the other nations' tech trees as counterparts to these vehicles? Number 3, the T-64B is getting the T-64BV as a mod. I'm not happy about that. I would rather it be its own separate vehicle, perhaps even in a folder with the T-64B. But aside from what other vehicles for the other nations had ERA to counter that, yes, we have the M60 Rise P for America and the AMX-30B2 Brenu, or Brennus, I should say, for France, but did they also have others? By the way, I love the look of the IRA-clad vehicles we have in-game, and lastly, I'd love to know what SPAA vehicles you would like to see in-game. I'd like to see more British, they don't have many, nor do French, and I hope the Italians get some good ones. I'm keen to see the 2K22 Tunguska. That's a great... Tunguska, I should say. That's a great name. So, let's break it down. The Tiger II 105 and the Panther II, I think a nice replacement is the Leopard prototype, as you said here. I am going to do a full video on the Leopard prototype and the different iterations that were actually built and we could see in-game, because it would fit in that bracket. I mean, we have the RU-251 at 6.7, we have the Leopard 1 at 7.7, at around about 7.0, 7.3, it kind of makes sense to put in a prototype Leopard. The idea of putting in Lend-Lease T-54s, I don't particularly like it, mainly because if you want to fit them into that 7.0, 7.3, you would have to pretty much limit them in some way, compared to the existing T-54s in Russia, whether that be ammo, whether that be the amount of armor that's on them. But yeah, I wouldn't like that. Instead, what I would like to see is a shift from a heavy tank to a light tank. So, if you don't know about light tanks for Germany, there is an interesting one. This is the SB-1C. It's a little diddly guy, and basically it's a very small machine which has a 90mm attached to it. It's obviously, as you can see, prevalent in World of Tanks. The model in World of Tanks looks incredibly nice, and pretty much it's incredibly small. It has a decent gun on it. The only issue with it is the fact that, you know, where does it fit in the, where does it actually fit in the tree? Around about 7.0, I think, would work, personally. As you can see, it has smoke launchers, it has a coaxial, a 90mm Merca, or Merca mitts, whatever that says. I ain't trying that. It has no armor though, so this would be susceptible to hull break in the greatest places, and artillery would annihilate it. So the thing that I would like to see addressed is the fact that Germany has a premium light tank, and they don't have a standard true light tank. So for me, I would personally like to see something which represents that in-game. One of the biggest issues is when you have something in the premium tree and don't have something similar in the standard tree, especially when it comes to light tanks now, since they got all of those changes to them, you know, like the scouting mechanics and the aviation stuff and the different modifications. It makes sense now to offer a standard tree version of a light tank instead of another heavy tank. Like the Tiger II 105, I see in much less battles than I do the Panther II. The Panther II is still a viable vehicle at 7.0. The Tiger II 105, I mean, it really isn't, unfortunately. If you think about it, you're always going to take the Panther II over the Tiger II 105, so sticking in another heavy tank, like if they really wanted to go bonkers and just go paper for paper, like something like the E75 or the Lerv, or the Lerva, or however you say it, or some kind of up-armored VK, then they could do that, but I don't think, well, I personally wouldn't like that because I prefer prototype or actual vehicles which were properly tested and even saw combat. The T62M being ready to go on the T80, so I'm not really too bothered about the T62M. We have vehicles in the game which can deal with it. The T62M is not that heavily armored. The main difference between it and the T62 is the gun launching system that it has. It is able to fire ATGMs. It'll probably get a slightly better shell. Its armor will pretty much stay the same though. And one of the things that limits the T62 in game right now is its reload rate, and I'm not sure if that's changed in the T62M. So with that said, I'm not exactly sure that we need to add anything to counter it. I think we already have them in game. The T80 is a different story. The T80 is a machine which is an upgrade. A lot of people bring up the T72, but the T72, when I look at statistics, when I look at opinions from, tank drivers or tank instructors, they see the T72 as worse than the T64, and they see the T80 as the actual, progression of the tanks from a Russian point of view. So the T80 being added, the T64B is pretty combat effective where it is. I mean, they've already talked about adding Leopard 2s, M1A1s, you've got for other nations, the Ariete, the Leclerc, all of these, or the early versions of the Leclerc, I should start saying that. You also have the STC, the Challenger is always going to be in a bad spot because of the meta around it, but yeah, I mean, do we need to add anything to combat the T80? There are options there, the question is, do we need to? And I'm not sure we need to right now. It will be interesting to see after a month or two how the T64B is doing, because looking at statistics right now, it is one of the least played higher vehicles, and we need to see what a full team of T64Bs versus like a full team of Leopards or a full team of Abrams looks like. and we're not getting a lot of them right now. So if it is that the T-64B is very much combat effective against the M1 Abrams, which I believe it to be, then it may be worth having a look at a different variant of an Abrams. And I don't know what you do for the British. I think what you do for the British is you add in different things like SPGs, AA and stuff like that, just to give them an advantage somewhere, right? The next point, the ERA stuff, the only one that I can bring up that I think would be interesting to add is this guy. So let's just have a look. Where is it? There was a Swedish version of the Centurion. And let's just see if I can find it. We'll just type in Swedish. Or Sweden. Are you serious? Alright. I believe it was Swedish. Is it this one? It might be this one. The Stridsvagen 104. Yeah, this. So, the STRV 104 is pretty much a 1990s renovated Centurion used by the Swedish. It has a very similar gun. It has upgraded, obviously, optics and, actual computers and stuff inside. But it's also got extra armor, as you can see here. So this would be, what I think this is probably going to be the British Rank 5 Premium. What I personally would like to see, just as a kind of guilty pleasure, is a Super Conqueror. If we're allowed to have paper vehicles, then I would like the Super Conqueror. If you don't know what the Super Conqueror is, it's the Death Star in World of Tanks. I think it was actually taken out of the game. Basically, take the chassis of a Conqueror, put on it a massive turret, and give it the FE405's gun. So a 183mm with a heavily armored turret and a Conqueror chassis. That's pretty much what it is, but yeah, if we're talking about just ERA stuff, I mean, adding this for the British makes sense. I think there is a Type 74 with some form of ERA on it, maybe the G Kai or whatever it is. But to be honest, ERA doesn't seem that useful right now when people are slogging APFSDS. Like, it's only useful against a few vehicles, but it is nice to see as a new armor mechanic, and we have had a ton of new armor mechanics recently in the game. But yeah, anything else? When it comes to SPAAs, I've already done a few videos on British AAs I'd like to see, and also talked about Russian AAs I'd like to see. Let's actually just have a look if I can find them. It may be if I just type in this. Oh, maybe we have to go home first. There we go. AA. Really? I can't click the search, I have to click that. Airfield AA, yeah, so the first one is this one, solving Russia's AA issues. And then... where's the other one? Did I ever make it? I think I did. Maybe I didn't make it, but but I do have a list of them somewhere. Basically, there's a lot of like stuff like the M4A5 RAM. There was a version which had a massive gun on it, but that would be much more similar to the, what would be the word? Like the 88 flak, the 88 flat truck and stuff like that. I would like to see the Challenger, the Challenger one, which I think is talked about in a little bit, so yeah. Also for Italy, they had a version of the Gepard, which is worrying. I mean, why not just... I mean, the Falcon is technically a prototype, so why not just stick a dish on it? The biggest issue is between 4.7 and 7.7, and basically what you're looking at from a British point of view is trucks with big guns on it, which obviously aren't very useful as AA in the game, so... and I don't see that many that could be added. When it comes to Soviets, there's a bunch of them that can be added. You can just go and watch that video and go through some of them. Which tank will be added for the first French stab tank? I mean, there's a few options. I'm pretty sure the AMX-40, since it was in like a prototype stage, you could probably fit a stabilizer to it. Technically the AMX-30s, at least the B2s and on, did have a kind of stabilizer. The issue is it's not really represented in game. You'd have to, like, if I always say to people, go and read about it because it is really interesting. So yeah, go and read about the AMX-30 and how its gun system works. That should technically have a stabilizer, but just not shown how in the game. Obviously, stuff like the Leclerc would have a stabilizer on it, and I'm not sure about the AMX-32. Basically, the three front runners for top tier French right now is the 32, which is basically a different or an added on version of the 30, the 40, which is a prototype, and then the Leclerc, which is kind of brought on by the 40. So it's either going to be one of those, depending on which one they decide to put into the game. My guess would probably be something like the 40, but obviously I don't know. That was by Lillian Sally, by the way. Wild Colt 60, TEC, what do you think we will get for Italians in their future ground tree and ground attack planes to accommodate their tanks? The issue with ground attack planes is there aren't really that many of them for Italy. There wasn't something that their doctrine really wanted. Their doctrine wanted much more medium-style fast bombers with good fighters. So when it came to ground attack, I mean, you have a few options. The fact that right now in the the Italian tree, the P108 is one of the highest attackers should tell you something. They didn't really value them, and the ones that they made were either very underpowered with their engines or just were kind of useless at what they were trying to do. It wasn't really something that they had a lot of faith in. They had a lot of faith in other things. So when it comes to aircraft, there's not really a lot that can be done. There's a few very low tier ones they could add, but if we're talking about the rank 3, rank 4s, I mean, German stuff or American stuff, that's pretty much it. When it comes to the tanks, I made a video. Yeah, let's find it again. We're doing because the thing is I've made a lot of videos over the years, so sometimes it's just better to say, go and watch this video, right? So here you go. So I made a one 4 months ago called 5 Interesting Italian Ground Vehicles. I went through them, talked about different variants of certain vehicles and what can be added. It's 40 minutes long, worth a watch. I go through the 5 ones I would personally like to see, but the issue is, the highest one would be like the Semavente 90, and even that is pushing it to be a rank 3, because there's no armor on it, and it has pretty much no ammunition, just a big-ass gun on it. So the biggest issues I see with the Italians is the rank 4 and rank 3 area for them. They have some really cool light/medium tanks that can be rank 1 and rank 2. They have some cool tank destroyers, which could be rank 2, maybe rank 3. Being at a push, mid-rank 3. The issue is rank 4 and rank 5. So they've got to fill the gaps. Now, I read a comment yesterday, which was basically talking about how instead of German tanks, they may add American tanks again, because obviously after the war, Italy used American tanks. But I would personally just prefer them to use German tanks, just so we still have a little bit of variety instead of everyone just running around in American tanks. Like I remember in the festive event where it was just Jumbos versus Jumbos because it was French versus America, and my god, was it incredibly boring. So I would like a little bit of variety, so they have to fill it with German vehicles, unfortunately, or they have to fill it with another nations. If they want to make it a mixed nation with somebody like Hungary and Romania, then there are options there in the form of the Turans, which could be added, which would be cool, and also some late-tier tank destroyers. So if they want to go down that route, yeah, that would be pretty cool. Pizza Kingdom, are you European or Canadian? I am European. I'm from the UK originally, and I live in Canada. The Fire is on Fire. Are you gay or straight? If you don't want to answer, how old are you? I'm straight, and I am 24 years old. Let's just see. Ooh. So this one's a bit dusty, but I thought, why not? Why not show? I'll just take some dust off of it. It's kind of just been sat up there for a while to make sure the camera's good. So I got married a few years ago to my wife, and her name is Kit, colloquially. So yeah, she's Canadian. I'm British, and we live in Canada. So that's just some general info. So this is from our wedding, as you can see. So yeah. It's there you go. And I have done some videos with Kit in the past. We mainly just play horror games and stuff. But we have ordered some boxes from certain horror boxes and stuff, so that may be coming to the channel. If she wants to ever do anything, all she has to do is ask. But yeah, she's a lot of the time busy with work. I'm busy with work as well, and it is just how it is, really. When it comes to actual getting together and doing video stuff. Declan Healy, do you think the amount of XP earned in tanks should be increased due to the fact everything is costing so much, and it will be off-putting for free-to-play players? For me personally, I think it would be nice if at least the RP for tanks is equal to the RP that you get in aircraft. I think in aircraft you get a decent amount of RP. It's in a good place, right? If you do well, you get rewarded well. If you do okay, you still get rewarded. If you do badly, you still get rewarded a little bit, but not a lot, right? But when it comes to tanks, it feels like, let's say you get a lot of kills and you win the match, you get half as much as you would if you killed 2 or 3 planes in Air RB. So for me, it should be the same in both. I don't agree with the argument that it is easier to kill a tank than an aircraft. From my point of view, it's actually the opposite. I would say I'm a much better pilot than I am a tanker. So in that respect, I find it easier to kill people in the air. Maybe it takes more time to do it in the air. Maybe that could also be an argument. But overall, I would like them to be equaled out. And that doesn't mean bringing aircraft RP down. It means raising tank RP up. This is... I'm sorry if I screw up your name, but to me it looks like this, or Tis, maybe? Tis Hoffman. What do you think about the state of British Tier 5? I think it's pretty hard to have a good match in them, especially after the AP buff. Just compare the M103 to the Conqueror. The Conqueror I have been having a lot of fun in, because it's the type of tank that I enjoy. Big gun, support tank, decent armor on the turrets, even though it gets penned sometimes, just randomly. But the state of British Rank 5, unfortunately, it doesn't fit how every other nation plays War Thunder. So one thing that you might see as you go up the ranks in War Thunder is less of a focus on heavy vehicles and more of a focus on fast vehicles with very good guns. Now, there are a few exceptions here, like the Mouse obviously is a good exception, but how many Leopard 1s do you see compared to the Mouse? The M103 is another exception, but once again, you see a hell of a lot more medium tanks than you do M103s. Now, this could be down to pricing, this could be down to the lines that people want to go down, but it's still a case, right? It still happens. So the issue with British Tier 5 is when you look at the Chieftains, when you look at the Conqueror, what you get are vehicles which are very good support vehicles and defensive vehicles. That doesn't help you a lot if everyone else is playing incredibly aggressive. So once you get a shot off and hit somebody and do damage to them, there's always going to be a second person following them up. You also have the issues with Sabo. I do think the Conqueror's Sabo should be doing at least as much damage as something like an M103. Not more damage, but at least, let's say 60-70% of it, because right now it isn't. It doesn't spread at all. It's pretty much just a lawn dart when it comes to it. Then we have a look at the chieftains. The chieftains are unfortunately just too slow for the meta, and what happens is they can't get into the positions quick enough. They're defensive positions where they do well. If they're on larger maps, it does help a little bit for them to get into positions, but on the smaller maps, which is the ones that you see the most, they're just going to get outflanked, or they're just going to get outdone because they can't get there quick enough, and they'll just get hit in the gun, they'll have to repair, and then all of the German team will swarm them. Which is what happens. At least with America and Russia, you have a nice mix of tanks. Right now, at British top tier, you have a bunch of tanks which aren't very fast, apart from the Challenger, of course, which aren't very fast, and what happens is they kind of just get stuck in a position while everybody else against them is in position ready to fight. The British are still trying to get there. The Falcon also is the worst AA out of the top tier AA, which is a shame, but it's still pretty good. Riley Kibbe, what is your favorite tank and plane outside of War Thunder? I personally really like the Halifax when it comes to planes. It's pretty much it's a toss-up between the Halifax and the Hurricane. I've seen both in real life. I've read a lot about both of them, and I see them as the unsung heroes of the British war, like in World War II. The Halifax flew so many combat missions. It flew more combat missions than the Lancaster, but everybody remembers the Lancaster. Very similar to the B-24 and the B-17, actually. And then the Hurricane for me was the workhorse of stuff like the Battle of Britain, and actually did more than the Spitfire, even though the Spitfire was seen as better, because it was. So, for me, it's probably the Halifax at the end of the day, if I'd have to say one. Favorite tank is an interesting one. If I was going to think about tanks that I've seen in real life and tanks that I've read about, I mean, it's a tough one, to be honest. Like, I think if we look at the technical marvel of something like a Panther, that's pretty cool. If we look at something like the Comet, which was way past its time when it was released. But generally, if we're talking about like impact on the war or something like that, I mean, I'm not exactly sure. The Black Prince was pretty cool. That was an interesting idea at the time. Also, you've got to give credit to stuff like the Cromwell and the Covenanter and everything like that, with all the different variations they tried to make it work, but never really could get it going, which is always funny to me. But overall, I'm not sure I have a proper favorite tank outside of War Thunder. Even in War Thunder, it's a bit of a toss-up between a few of them. But yeah, it's either going to be something like the Black Prince or the Cromwell or something like that. AK Night Stalker 0. What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Well, it depends if it's African or European, doesn't it, sir? Empire Builder 12. If you could change one large thing about War Thunder, example BR system, way rewards are calculated, etc., what would it be? I'd like to see rewards reworked. I think there should be more of an emphasis on if you're up-tiered, you should get a hell of a lot more rewards if you do well compared to if you do well being down-tiered. It would be nice to see more emphasis on skill in the game when it comes to that. Like if a person's in, let's say, a 4-7 tank and they get up-tiered to 5-7, but they still do well, like they still get 4 or 5 kills, I think you should get so much more, like Silver Lines and RP, than if you are at a 5-7 and you get 4 or 5 kills. And right now, that isn't really shown in the game. I also think there should be much more factors to the reward system. So a lot of people have brought up in the idea that you don't really get a lot from defending bombers in RRB, and that's very true. There's no distance bonus you get or anything like that. but I don't know how you would implement it, but it would be nice to see. Much more emphasis on teamwork would be nice, and also more emphasis on scouting. So basically buff the rewards for teamwork and scouting. Also make assists much more, rewardable, because I think assists are rewardable at the end of the day. And instead now it's much more about if you get kills or not. So I would definitely say the reward system would be something to change. The BR system I'm pretty much okay with. When you compare it to other games, it's still in a better position than other games. Maybe one thing to do would be to think about the World of Tanks system, where they put in the 3-5-7 rule, or something like that, or the 5-7 rule, or whatever it is. Basically, it means you get 3 top tier vehicles per side, you get 5 medium tier, and then 7 lower tier. That's how they do it. I think a system like that could work in War Thunder, because there's been many times where I've had like a full 5-7 lineup, or maybe full 5-7 and then 2 6-7s, and then the whole enemy team is 6-7s, and that isn't a fair match, so that should definitely be looked at. Logan Bedenis, what is the weirdest thing you have ever seen in real life? Weirdest computer or game glitch? Weirdest vehicle design? Etc. Take your pick. Weirdest thing? That's a toughie. That's a real toughie. I think probably the hummingbird is one of the weirdest things. I know it's not a weird thing to the majority of people, but to me, just the way it works is very odd. The fact that all of the crazy designs that were developed for the D-Day landings, like there was one where it's literally, the idea was it was a circle which was powered by rockets, and it would roll onto the beach and blow up kind of like a mine. Obviously this didn't work because they designed it to go over the water as well, but they couldn't work out how to do it compared to the waves. That was kind of funny. I suppose another one, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's the Valiant. Yeah, this is, if we're talking about just weirdest design, this is probably a very weird design. You may look at this and you may think, oh, okay. So this is an interesting vehicle, looks like early war, maybe late 1930s, something like that. No, this was 1944, and it was a riveted tank design made by the British. So, just to put this in perspective, stuff like the Tiger and the Panther had been in service like at least a year before this, and this was what the British came up with as a tank to face stuff like that. A riveted tank with a 57 on it. But yeah. Also stuff like Togs, but you can kind of understand where the Tog design comes from. The Badass Bassist is a wonderful name, and I just want to check, do you actually make videos? I do like a good bassist. No, unfortunately not. Well, that's a shame. The amount of long-form content you put out is staggering. How do you handle playing one game so much so often without burning out? Or if you do, how do you handle it? There's many ways. I talked about in a video before about burnout. If I have a really rough day in War Thunder, I pretty much just play some single missions or a dynamic campaign, and it kind of takes me out of it. So, I can then go back to it, and whoop, I'm just going to check. Okay, cool. Doop. And yeah, when it comes to it, single missions, dynamic campaign, basically anything which isn't random battles, and also squadding up with people and having a laugh helps a lot. One of the great things about the Discord server is that I can just sit there and have a chat with people, and that helps a lot. Also, the whole editing process normally takes quite a while, so that takes me out of it, because I can't edit and I can't play while I'm uploading. Also, just doing other things as well. Whether it be writing or reading or, hanging out with the wife, watching TV, going to work. There's all of these things that help as well. When it comes to the content side of stuff, I've never really had an issue with long-form things. I actually prefer long-form things. and creating it for me is completely fine to do. Even if some, like, I get a few comments which are like, oh, well, you're droning on, make your point quickly and stuff, or, you talk too slow or you talk too monotone. The reason why I take long explaining stuff is because, first of all, I want to make sure it's right in my mind, and second of all, I believe highly in that a ton of context helps a hell of a lot in explaining what I'm talking about for the average person. The reason why I talk slow and monotone is, first of all, in YouTube, there's this wonderful feature where if you go to it in settings and speed, and you can actually bump me up by ×2. So if you think I speak too slow, just bump me up and listen to me quicker. But one thing I realized when I was not learning to speak, but learning to have an accent where it could be palatable for everyone, is that having a relaxed accent and also speaking slower will help you when you're talking to people who are of a foreign descent, because then it's very easy for you to get your point across and they can understand everything. Sometimes if I'm speaking to an English native speaker, they'll think, oh, I'm speaking very slow, it's kind of boring. But if I'm talking to somebody who's, let's say, from Spain or from Germany or from Italy or even some parts of Asia, then it's much easier for those people to understand what I'm saying, instead of if I'm speaking really fast like this, which is not something that I can't do. It's very easy to do, but the issue is, as I said before, it doesn't feel right in my head. I've never really spoke like that, and also the fact is, a lot of people can't understand me when I do this. Do you see what I mean? Like, I can do it, I just don't. A lot of people just think I'm some boring old asshole. No, I can talk quicker if I want. Shimakaze-chan, who is very active on the Discord and very nice to see in this comment section. Are you going to have mods plus reform the Discord a bit, like creating categories for certain channels? Yep, we have, since this was posted, we have now a moderation team. And there is 7 of the lads, and as the Discord increases, more people come, we'll be adding more people to the moderation team as goes along. It will come down to votes and decisions between the mods themselves. Basically, as the admin of the whole thing, me, Rex, and Taz have ultimate power when it comes to decisions, but it's nice to hear other people's opinions as well on top of it, which is basically what we're doing it for, and also to have a little bit more free time. So, because what was happening with the Discord, it had 250 people on it. It was very active, still is very active, but now, after I talked about it twice, it now has 350 people on it. So you can see the issue here. For me personally, being able to manage 350 people, or 3 of us managing 350 people, it's not going to go well. So that's why we got the moderation team. When it comes to reforming, we've added a bunch of channels. We have a hub suggestion channel, which is basically designed for if you have a suggestion for it. We've added a few more bots as well. We're doing giveaways once a week now. So there's all these things, which is good. But we will keep growing in the sense of adding more stuff as people bring it up, because we have a ton of stuff now. But yeah. When will we see new replay reviews after the Chronicles? I'm not sure when they're going to come back. The way that I see replay reviews is they are content that I create when I am not short of content, but when there's nothing new going on, or there isn't a topic that I really want to delve into that much. So when it comes to that, I think the best way of putting it, but not to disparage it, is it's kind of it's filler content for me. So it's very much I'll get back to it when I get back to it. I have all of the replays saved that people have sent me, and as they send me, I get maybe one every 2 days or so. They're all saved on my hard drive, and I will go through them, or maybe I'll do like some competitions or something when it comes to replays. We'll have to see. Right now there's a ton of channels which do offer like highlights and replays and stuff, so yeah, for that it's very much when I feel like it now, instead of I'm gonna do this on this day, and all that stuff. Dog for Life, who is one of our Discord mods, who is your waifu? I've thought long and hard about this, because I think it's a very important question, and I've decided to go with Saya Kisaragi. And if you don't know who this is the main character out of Blood Sea. It is an anime. She is a badass, and I would definitely say go and watch Blood Sea and the consequent movie. It's a TV show, and go and watch the movie as well. And there's also other animes set around it. It's a lot of fun. It's your typical anime, over the top, and and a ton of stuff going on. But yeah, let's go with Saya Kisaragi. She is my waifu for the day. Next one, Grant Lee. Nice to see you again, bud. Why do the pintle-mounted or turret-mounted machine guns not turn all the way? This is annoying for shooting down aircraft. I don't know. I feel like with a lot of machine guns in-game, there are very small issues with them. And when they fix when they put in the hull-mounted machine guns, we might just see a complete rework of how all the other mechanics around them work. So hopefully soon, but as they've said in the past, it isn't on their top priority list. And yeah, it would be nice just to see them be able to go 360, but unfortunately they can't. Adam Sakamandi, what kinds of foods do you enjoy eating? Also, what hobbies do you have that you enjoy? When it comes to foods, I'll pretty much eat anything. I'm not that much of a picky eater. When it comes to foods that I really enjoy, some of the ones that I've been missing over... Let's just see, is the camera still working? Oh my god, the camera's still working after 40 minutes. Isn't that wonderful? What kind of foods do you enjoy eating? I really like a good steak and ale pie, or a steak and kidney pie. But I haven't had one in a very, very long time. Big, hearty British food, because that was kind of what I was brought up on. And I really enjoy that type of food. I think that food fits me the best when it comes to sitting down on a Sunday, having a bunch of food with the family. That's what I like doing. Also, what hobbies do you have? When it comes to hobbies, I read a lot, whether it's to do with work or whether it's to do with World War II. I love reading. Reading is a big part of my daily, activity. A lot of the time when I'm just sat on Discord, I'm reading at the same time, or I'm doing something else. I do enjoy editing. Editing, I suppose, would be seen as a hobby. And also walking. I like walking around parks. I like walking around the countryside. I wouldn't class it as hiking because I don't really like going up big mountains or anything. But going for nice walks around very fresh areas when it comes to greenery and land, I do enjoy that. That's really nice. And also cooking shows. I watch a lot of cooking shows with the wife, and also, just cooking shows in general are really good. Stormy Driver. Let's just read more on this. There we go. What was the reason you joined War Thunder? Why do you keep playing as much as you do? And do you miss the good old days of Tigers versus IS-2s and Shermans versus Panzers? The reason why I joined is I used to play World of Tanks like 5 years ago, it seems at this point, and I started watching Sircon. And I still watch Sircon. He's probably one of the best World of Tanks YouTubers to watch. Very skilled, very fun, and very interesting to watch his playstyles. And now, when I saw a recommended video by the Mighty Jingles, so I watched some of his stuff, realized that there was a game called War Thunder, started watching some of that. It was more it was only plane focused at that time, and I think the video was like on the B-17, and he was talking about it, and it sounded really interesting, so I thought, why not give it a go? The one thing I didn't like about World of Tanks was, I remember I got to a Cromwell in the British tree, which is probably mid-tier, something like that, and I started going up against machines I couldn't do anything against. Like, the idea of gold ammo was still around at that time in World of Tanks, and you needed it in certain vehicles to be even combat effective, and I felt in the Cromwell I was not combat effective, being a stock vehicle, not able to get any research for stuff because I was dying so quickly. And I'm sure a lot of people felt like that. A lot of people feel like that in War Thunder, but I think the grind in War Thunder is a lot nicer than it is in World of Tanks. When you can not have the right gun when you start, playing the vehicle and everything like that. But yeah, basically I started off World of Tanks, transitioned to War Thunder, never really looked back, and I've enjoyed it ever since. Why do you keep playing as much as you do? Because I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy War Thunder. I find the game very fun. All the new content that comes out, I find interesting. There are some things that I find more interesting than others. Like, I'm not really that interested in naval, but when it comes to the evolution of enduring confrontation and World War mode and stuff like that, I enjoy it. I also don't play stuff I don't enjoy. So a lot of people right now are banging on about rank 6 and the issues with rank 6. Well, if I don't enjoy it, I won't play it. So instead of ragging on something, I'll just find something in the game that I enjoy. There's so many options in War Thunder to do what you want, even if you just want to do single player stuff. Like, there's tons of it, so whenever I get bored of one part of it, I just play another part of it. And also, I really enjoy World War II. And one of the things that, when it comes to War Thunder, I don't really care about is stuff like the later tier stuff. So rank 6 in tanks, rank 5 in aircraft. I much prefer rank 3 in aircraft and rank 4. And then in tanks, once again, rank 3, rank 4, all the under stuff. Like, I like World War II things. I read a lot about World War II. That's what interests me. When we talk about any other war or any other conflict, I don't really care. So yeah, that's also what brings me back. Do I miss the good old days of Tigers versus IS-2s and Shermans versus Panzers? Not really. It was fun at the time. I remember IS-2s being incredibly fun against Tigers back in the day. But it is nice to see that we actually now have the tanks that I have a lot of knowledge about and interest in, which is pretty much the British tanks and the Americans. Like, back then, there was a hell of a lot of problems, especially with bugs. Nowadays, there's less problems, but there's different problems. So it is nice to see that we've had a progression in War Thunder. And do I miss the good old days? I have good and bad memories from back then, depending on what good old day you're talking about. There was times where I felt the game couldn't get any better than it did. But then I remember, like, a patch later or a patch before, when the game was not as fun or there was a big bug breaking it. So for me personally, if I was to go back to any point, if I had to, I'd probably go back to British tanks when they released and get the British tank packs and play through that again. Because that was one of my funnest experiences in War Thunder. Jeffrey the Sheep won. With War Thunder going so far forward in time to things like modern MBTs, what do you think about if Gaijin took a step backwards into, say, World War I era aircraft? I know tanks wouldn't work too well, but aircraft and boats might. Well, I mean, the boats that we're getting are pretty much 1920s, 1930s. At least the early destroyers, early light cruisers and stuff like that. When it comes to aircraft for World War I, the actual aircraft in World War I think would be kind of boring, but it would still be interesting to do. What I would like to see focused on is like late 1920s and then 1930s aircraft. I know we have a lot of them in game right now, but there's a hell of a lot more that we could add. Now the question is, would that really make them any money? No, not really, because it would not take a lot of time to research them. And everybody will be done with them within a week and complaining about how there's no new content, because they have already played it all. But if we're talking about from a hypothetical point of view, yes, I would like to see stuff from late 1920s, 1930s more in the game, in the form of aircraft. In the form of tanks, I mean, even in tanks, there's a few that could be added, but a lot of the stuff we have in game is from the 1930s when we look at rank 1s. I mean, the only one which is missing is like the Renaults, right? The Renaults are the one which aren't around the place. But yeah, I mean, why not? If from a personal point of view, if they decided to go backwards instead of forwards, I would be happy with this, because I have much more interest in that part of history than I do with modern day stuff. I'm not interested as much in the modern day stuff, and I can't find any info on it. So meh. Do I think the F4 will be added to War Thunder? This is from Silencer55. I think eventually it will. The testing that has been talked about for about a year is that they've been testing the A10 and the SU-25. The F4 is one of those multi-role vehicles, which I think will eventually get added. The issue is balancing it, and I am really happy that they are taking their time, especially with like naval and rank 6 jets, to be able to work out how to actually balance these machines, because you get to a point in modern combat where you've created a plane which can pretty much do everything, and that will fundamentally break the game. So yeah, I think it'll eventually get added. It seems like a lot of people are hyped about it, and therefore it will eventually get there, you know? This is Ted Smart. What real-world tanks and/or planes would you like to see incorporated into War Thunder? Why do I see nothing but commercials for hamburger chains on your YouTube channel? So, when it comes to tanks and/or planes, it would be nice to see the Valiant, to be honest, the British one. I am a big proponent of the Whitley bomber. The Whitley bomber is a pencil bomber made by the British. It wasn't exactly very good, but there were several versions of them made, and when we look at the British, there aren't that many other things to add. I mean, the Manchester as well. I'm talking about bombers here. There is obviously a bunch of fighters you could add, but yeah, the Whitley bomber would be nice. The Whitworth Whitley, the Manchester bomber would be nice to see. The Valiant when it comes to tanks. Other things, the main one which is very surprising that we haven't seen in tanks is the Stug 4. Like, where's that at? And I've never seen an answer about it. It's very odd that it isn't in game. I mean, maybe they think it's too similar to the Stug 3 and therefore not really needed. But yeah, there's no Stug 4, which is just odd to me. I mean, I suppose we also have the Panzer 470. It would be nice to see some weird and wonderful American prototypes, such as the auto-loading heavies, but I don't know where you put them for them to be combat effective and also fun to play. And then the commercials for hamburger chains. Is it, I think it's A&W, right? Is it A&W? Yeah, let's have a look. A&W. If you're in Canada, commercial. Yeah, do you see these ones? Because I see these ones constantly on YouTube channels. If you're in Canada, then it might be just a Canadian thing. If you're in America or somewhere else, I have no idea. But for me personally, I don't know. A&W seems to just be putting commercials on everything right now. Red Andreas, how do you get your beard to grow so nice? I don't really. Andreas is another moderator, by the way, on the Discord. I don't. My beard is a bit scraggy, to be quite honest. And the reason for this is because I don't really have to shape it. I don't really have to do anything to it, but I should do at some point. If you want some tips on how to keep your beard in good stead, I know a few lads who use beard oils, which is always interesting. But I personally just go for the classic Tresemme to give it that silky soft shine. So that's basically all I do to my beard. Frank Bradley, do you think that the M1 Abrams should get its M833DU APF-STS rounds in games since it went up in BR, and when more advanced Tier 6 MBTs get added? Also, please wish for Tier 6 jets and the M3 Bradley to come to the game. Congrats on the subscriber milestone, dude. 8k will be here before you know it. Well, that's very kind of you, Frank. Thank you. When it comes to the M1 Abrams with its DU round, I mean, we know that it's in the game files, right? Like, it was data mined a while back that it's in the game files, and I think eventually, when these vehicles get added, it will be added to the Abrams. Right now, I don't think it needs it. I do think when we start getting stuff that's already been confirmed, so a Leopard 2 production variant, the M1A1, the T80, stuff like that, yes, it will have to be added to be competitive. And then you've got to think about the other vehicles, like what are you going to give the Challenger to make that competitive? When it comes to the Bradley, I would love to see the Bradley in game. There are so many scout/light vehicles I would love to see at every rank. I think every rank should have at least one light vehicle in it for scouting purposes for every nation. Right now, Britain has pretty much 0, so I would first of all work on them, since, America has a pretty healthy lineup, like T92, Scorpion, M551, the Sheridan, stuff like that. So I'd work on the British first and the Germans, and also the Russians are okay. But yeah, it would be nice to see stuff like the Bradley. I mean, why not, right? That would be a really cool vehicle to go alongside something like an Abrams. And moving on, we have Boendel Gaming. Congrats on the 7K. I find all your content very enjoyable and like how you don't shy away from a bit of controversy. Isn't that kind of funny? Because of the last few days. Can't wait to see what else you decide to do. Apologies for this, but my question is quite lengthy. That's completely fine, I'll still read it. As this idea has been banging around in my head for years now, and I would like to ask your thoughts on the idea. Do you think transport aircraft, such as the Douglas DC-3 or C-47, or even the H-4 Hercules, the Spruce Goose, would have a place or may work in War Thunder? While I agree it somewhat doesn't fit into War Thunder's playstyle, I believe it could still work to an extent. I mean, yes, only some transports had defensive armaments in a limited manner, but if you make them a big threat, then it encourages teamwork and escorting so much more. Dropping troops or vehicles could act similarly to how the ground AI currently work, but in a much more substantial and influential way, given how difficult the task would be. They could also be an alternative to bombing targets. Instead of destroying a base, you could capture the base instead. I mean, they could also work in ground force battles if done correctly, although I haven't thought that much if I'm honest, as I imagine that would be way too difficult to implement. While I admit it doesn't completely make sense to have them in a game like War Thunder, they can still work. They work in IL-2 somewhat well, and that's basically a more advanced, realistic version of War Thunder, so it can't be that crazy of an idea. This is an interesting one, so I've never really dabbled into the idea of having the... what's the word? Having paratroopers being human-controlled. Or the paratrooper drops, I should say. But I did dabble in the idea, as you can see, for AI paratrooper objectives. So this is probably the one you want to watch. This is an example that I give, and if we actually go to this video, I'll just turn off the sound real quick. There we go. Oops. I'll make sure to mute that. So what I do is I take a picture of a map, I show like the different stuff that would be nice to see, and then I go through basically ways that the AI could go to be able to actually, work this all out. And I explain how it would work on a map like the Berlin, and as you can see, the dislike and like is okay. There's some interesting comments below. But yeah, I have talked about it, a decent amount. I think it works well in an AI type of way for aerialistic. The biggest issue when it comes to stuff like player controlled is I think it would annoy a hell of a lot of people who are on your team. But then again, we already have vehicles which don't have armament on them. The Canberra, the B-57, the Votor. But the thing about them is they are incredibly quick. Or at least quick for their tier, and they also get an air spawn which makes them even faster, meaning that getting to the target for them isn't that hard to do. The Arado is another example of this. So for these machines like the C-47 and the Douglas DC-3, these aren't fast machines. So putting them, balancing them by BR would be quite hard to do. I do like the ideas that you proposed here. I pretty much brought them all up in an AI context. From a player point of view, I'm not sure it would work, because it would put one side at a massive disadvantage compared to the other, because they would have less planes to actually fight in the end. And once you've dropped your troops, there's not really a lot you can do. Like, you could maybe go back to the airfield and get more troops, but I mean, yeah, it's not the same as like a bomber, because you don't have any defensive armament really. You're not fast, and you'll just get annihilated. I think it would just annoy more people than it would give people the benefit. I would rather have it in an AI context. I think that would work. In ground forces, I have no idea how it could work from that point of view. Alfred Noyes Sumner, why is your name the European Canadian? I am a European who lives in Canada. European Canadian. Toshio, hey, you put me in your channel. Thanks, man. I like your subs. They're nice folks. I've enjoyed hooking up with people in your Discord for this event. Good stuff. Congratulations, my friend. Your community is a nice one. If you don't know who Toshio is, he's a content creator. If you want to find him, you can go to my channel and home, and he's right here. He's a nice guy. Really nice to just chat to. Roy Bleckman, do you think the Chieftain Marksman... That's what I was thinking of. The Chieftain Marksman will be added next update. How do you feel about the Chieftain Marksman? So I said I'd get back to it. I just couldn't remember the name of it. I thought it was a Challenger one, but obviously it's a Chieftain one. So there we go. So the Chieftain Marksman, as you can see, it's a War Thunder forum suggestion, which is always nice to see. It's basically this thing. So, you know how everybody else gets like a Gepard? This was the British version, as you can see, a very interesting machine. And I think why not, you know? It's obviously been built, as you can see. When it comes to the turret itself, the main armament's 235, so pretty much exactly the same as what you find on something like a Gepard. And then it has smoke grenade discharges, it has radar on it. I mean, now that we have radar in the game, why not add it? I mean, it makes sense, right? So yeah, let's chuck it in. Let's make it the top tier AA for the British. It should be fun. And you can't say it's overpowered, because basically every other nation now has something very similar. The Vulcan, the Gepard, the Japanese Gepard, the Italians when they get their Gepard, the AMX-30 with the ridiculous fire rate on it, which is kind of similar to this, but yeah, not exactly the same. It would be nice to see something like this in game. I'd say definitely let's go for it. It's much better as a top tier AA than the Falcon. Could you do a setup tour? I know, kind of stupid question. It's not a stupid question, Cryptid. My setup is incredibly simple. I might do one day. But right now, I don't want to. The reason for that is because I don't really have a camera that I'm comfortable using to show stuff from the other perspective. Like, I have the webcam, right? But it's on a cable, and I can't just move it around the room as easy as possible. So if I get a decent camera at some point, maybe a phone camera, like my wife has an iPhone, so we could use that. I might do a setup tour, but my basic setup is I have, my computer screen in front of me. To my right is a laptop, which is dying, but, it's still there. I have a light in the middle of it for the webcam. I have three schematics of planes above me in picture form. I have a bookcase right to the left, which is full of books and electronics and boxes, and then I have another bookcase down here which my mic stand is connected to. This is also full of books, then a printer next to it, then I have another microphone back there which I don't use anymore, and that's pretty much it. Like, it's nothing that's crazy. It's just your typical place. Maybe one day if I get a decent camera. It's either Jean or Jean or John. I'm going Jean. Soon it's going to be 1 million. That's very kind of you. I doubt it, though. I do have 1 million views, though, which is pretty cool. Babson123, why are you so good looking? Well, I suppose if you're into cavemen, I mean, I'm a looker, but unless if you have a penchant for cave trolls or Shrek, I mean, I'm your guy, but generally I wouldn't class myself as a good-looking guy. So let's move on to the other questions. I'm just going to take a quick drink while this loads. So I asked in the community thing for people to put more questions in the Q&A if they had them a few days ago, because I said I was going to do the Q&A, and instead some people I think misread it and decided to put them in there. so we're going to go through them, right? This was just from Joel. We already answered his question. Connor Roderick with the very, very, very good question. Do you have autism? And if so, how has it helped your YouTube career? No, I don't have autism. I do have... Well, I don't... I have issues sleeping, I think is the best way to cause it. The doctor says it is like a mild form of insomnia. When I was going through university, I had a real issue being able to sleep. Like, it wasn't really... it was more brought on by a workload issue. I was doing a hell of a lot of work for my degrees when I was at university, and it got to the point where I was pretty much sleeping every other day. Incredibly unhealthy. Just don't do it. Make sure that your sleep schedule is sorted, and make sure you don't overwork yourself. But since then, I have had issues sleeping, where sometimes I only sleep 1 or 2 hours a day, and sometimes I just don't sleep. I just keep going, and yeah, it's not healthy. But I definitely don't have autism. Asif Talpur. Question. What nation should one play, apart from the Germans, for the least amount of struggle at late Tier 4, Tier 3, early Tier 4 ground forces? This comes from a free-to-play player who does have issues with Silver Lions and doesn't have anything remotely premium. I would actually say if that's your stance, that's what you want to get to, Tier 3, early Tier 4, I would say Russians. Russians is your best bet. When it comes to the British you'll have quite a torrid time with. There's a lot of vehicles there where, even though there was an AP buff, it can be extremely annoying using stuff like the Cromwell with its 57 or its 75. The Churchills are annoying to use. The Firefly is inconsistent. Until you get to some rank 4 stuff, yeah, it can be annoying. For the Americans is pretty good going through. There is a few areas which can feel kind of tiresome. Like after the 4th or 3rd or 4th Sherman, it kind of gets boring, especially with the 376 ones, which aren't that different. But yeah, I would say go for the Russians. The Russians, they have very good guns. They have decent armor. They have a little bit of everything, whether you're like AA, light tanks, medium tanks, heavy tanks. If you're just talking about Tier 3 and Tier 4, a lot of the issues that the Russians have, when it comes to stuff like AA, they don't really rear their ugly head until rank 4, rank 5. So yeah, I would definitely say Russia is probably your best bet. Really fun rank 1, really fun rank 2. Rank 3 is also fun as well. So yeah, Russia. Are you gay? Dab? No, I'm not. Already been through that. Tyler Williams, what is the meaning of life? I was going through these questions earlier, and I was asking Kit some of them, and for that one she said happy wife, happy life, so I'm gonna go with that. If not, treat everybody around you well, and be happy. Do what makes you... do stuff that makes you smile and be happy, and if in your life you haven't found that yet, just keep trying different things until you find the thing which you really enjoy. AJ Casey, 13. With all these new vehicles being added into the game, would you want to see a huge overhaul to the BR, so a Tiger P would be battling a T95 or any other 7.3 vehicle? Or maybe a new algorithm that detects your overall BR? I'm in a Nashorn 5.3, Panther 6.0, Tiger 2P, and getting up to 7.3. In arcade, I think it does do some kind of averaging out. I'm not particularly sure about it, though. It is an interesting thought. I would personally prefer, as I've said before, If I was going to make a drastic change to the BR system, it would be to make it so vehicles change BR depending on how many stuff they have unlocked. So if you're a stock vehicle, you should have a lower BR compared to the fully upgraded version of that vehicle. I think that should be something that's considered, because a Tiger 2P being uptiered into 7.3 while being fully upgraded is a hell of a lot better experience than being a stock one, because in the stock one you're just boned. Like, there's nothing you can do. You'll get cannon breached like in the first minute, and then you'll just go cry yourself to sleep. Whereas if you're fully upgraded, you might get cannon breached, you can repair, you can, maybe put out a fire, you can survive a little bit longer, you can shoot back, and that's just a lot better experience for the average player. So I'd like to see that being added. When it comes to averaging your BR out of your lineup, a lot of people would try and abuse this system quite a lot by taking a bunch of lower tier vehicles and then just having one high tier vehicle. If you made it so it could only average it over a certain BR range, then yeah, I suppose we could have this. But once again, you would still have people who would abuse that system. I personally would prefer it if... actually, no. No, I don't think that's right. But with looking at realistic, I mean, in arcade, a system where they average it out could help out a little bit, but I think that system's already in place. In realistic, a lot really depends on your first spawn, so having that change, I don't think that should change. I think that should stay the same in that way. I think changing vehicles BRs depending on how many modifications they have, I think would be a much better option to look at instead of that. Fox Wars X, what is your favorite playstyle? I like playing the supportive defensive playstyle, so being the second man in, or being the guy who is playing Overwatch. I think, Overwatch over the map. I think that is much more fun for me instead of being the aggressive, let's get in there playstyle. It works better for me. Compiled meatbag, add me homo, I smoke your boy pussy? ? Nah, I'm alright, bud. Logue, are you dumb? Sometimes. We all are. Halo Man 649. Would you ever do a road to tier 5 and 6 for a nation? No premium vehicles or gold? No, because I don't want to hang myself. I understand that tier 5 and 6 with no premium or gold is a very hard task and would take a hell of a long time unless you were grinding 24/7 and playing Japanese. And the thing is, I just don't want to do it. I know the struggles that a lot of people have with getting to rank 5 or 6 for a nation, but for me personally, I prefer rank 3 and 4 vehicles, so I don't even really think about that issue. Would I ever do a road to it? Well, it doesn't really fit what I like doing, so no. At the end of the day, I like making content that I like. If I make content which I don't like, I'm not going to enjoy it, and I'm going to start resenting this whole thing, which is a bad idea. Delta Eagle says, put the questions under the video. Thank you, Delta. Haroon, do you know why the 6 animal decals from the World War II Chronicles are the only thing, as far as I know, that can't be bought or sold on the market? I think it's because they're new. Because they're new to the game. Generally, if we see a lot of the stuff on the marketplace, a lot of it is from previous events, or can be unlocked through this event, but from previous events. So, I'm guessing that's the reason why. Because they're new to the game. I would personally like to see them available on the marketplace, but it seems like they've decided not to. I'm guessing for the next event they will be available, though, in the same way that the older ones are available now through the workshop stuff. Christian Wright, how do you feel about the Tiger 2 being at 6.7? Personally, I think it should be at 7.0. I think it's fine at 6.7. Like, it's been at 6.7 for a long time. There's a lot of data on it. I do like the 6.7 heavies, how they match up against each other. T-34, Tiger 2H, IS-2, Mod 44, the Carnarvon. All of these vehicles, the French have mediums of that tier. All of these vehicles are fun to fight against each other, so I think 6.7 is fine for it. Noor Mohammed, what is your thoughts on the new Russian tanks that will be added? I don't think the T-62M will change that much. I think the T-80 will... I think the T-80 will become a very good vehicle in the game, but it depends what comes alongside it. Because you don't just drop something like a T-80. Well, maybe the normal T-80. Like, the main variant I'm worried... There's two variants that I'm worried about. I'm worried about the T-80B and the T-80U. And these two are, like, modernized versions. If you just drop the T-80, I think it would be good, but would it be game-breaking? I don't think so. But if you add something like the T-80U, yeah. We're going to have a few talks about what's being added alongside of it as well. Another thing is, I can't remember what part of the thing, but there was a part of another question about the T-64BV. No, I don't think it should be a modification. I think it should be a separate vehicle. I don't like the BMP being a modification difference, and I don't like the BV being a modification difference either. Right. Let's see. What is this in? Oh, okay. So now we have the last part. This is my God. I also said today on the here we go, on the ideas for videos on the Discord, that what we're going to do is is questions here as well. So, my God, this has been a long one, but I think it's been a good one so far. So the first one is from Murat. What do you think about the future of War Thunder? I'm optimistic about it. I mean, I like where World War Mode is going. I like where Enduring Confrontation is going. I do think Aerialistic does need a bunch of changes to it, but I think they come in the form of EC. One of the issues that I think is coming is just more focus on modernized stuff, and the game will become a lot more unrealistic because of that, and I really don't like that idea. So personally, I am optimistic about the game modes. I'm not that interested about the rank 6 jets, and naval forces, I haven't been caught yet. I need a catch for naval forces. Like, I need a reason why it's going to be fun, because all the stuff I've played right now, I don't think it's that fun. I've already answered the email question from Daddle. Murat, do you think they'll add modern jets in this year? I mean, maybe. That's the thing. It's very hard to tell. Like, if you asked me this like a month ago, before we got the information about modern jets, they're having issues with them, I would have said yes. But now that's come out in the interviews that they've been doing, I don't know. Like, it's very much an I don't know right now. And also with the fact that they've been taking more time with naval and with other parts of the game to make sure that they're correct. I hope that they do the same with modern jets, which seems to be what they're doing. So I'm not sure they'll come out this year. What's your favorite meme? Oh, that's a very good question. I don't know. Right now I like the guy, you know what I mean? Let's just see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, there it is. So this guy. So it's him just screaming, right? Like, and it gets added to stuff. I think that's just grand. That's my favorite right now. Where can I see what people have already asked? Well, the Q&A that I just did. Zika Brand, do you think any other vehicles with an air spawn will follow after the P-47 loses its air spawn? I think there's an argument for the TAR-154. Wait, no. I'm thinking of the 152, right? Yeah, I think there's an argument for the Clipwing 152 to take off from the ground. But that's, I don't really think so, to be honest, when it comes to that. Hopefully it does lose its air spawn, but all the others, I think are fine having their air spawn. All of the ones which were an issue before, like the Tiger Cat and the B6R3, either the meta's changed, or the game has changed, or, they've kind of gone out of fashion, so I'm not too worried about them. Just a guy. Since we have light cruisers confirmed, do you think we might get battleships after all? From a personal point of view, I hope we don't get battleships. But then again, from a personal point of view, I didn't want destroyers or light cruisers either. So it depends how vocal the community is about these things. There's a lot of sentiment in the community where they want naval forces now. They want it in open beta, they want to try it now, and it may be worth actually putting it in open beta just to see people's general feelings about it, and if the feelings are positive and there's a lot of people playing it, then working on battleships might be a good idea. But right now, we don't know the gauge of how popular of a game mode it would be. So it would be nice to see how popular it would be, and then from there, maybe battleships. But as I said, from a personal point of view, I'm not that interested. Do I think the 906 is OP? It's pretty damn good at its BR. Is it overpowered? I mean, it has pretty much everything you'd want in a vehicle at rank 4/5. The only thing it doesn't have is armor, and it doesn't need it. Its speed does limit it a little bit, but I think pushing it up in BR would be fine. I would personally put it at 7.7. I already run it at 7.7 with my T54s and the IS-4M, so yeah, putting it up a little bit in BR so it faces higher stuff, I think that's fine. Make it more of a scout than just a tank killer. What's the sickest move you've ever done in the game? Like killing a plane with an artillery strike? This is from Neutronium. I don't know. There's been a few times where I've single-handedly carried aerialistic games, and that feels really fun. Like, I enjoy that. That is something that I am happy doing. Like, when it's like a 5-on-1, and you're able to bring it back, and you're able to win from that position, like playing well, that to me is one of the coolest things you can do in War Thunder. Like, I understand a lot of people like the highlight stuff, but for me, carrying games in a no-win scenario where you have like a 1-2% to win, but you bring it back, that to me is the sickest stuff, and I've definitely done it a few times in aircraft. Do you think they will add the Leopard 2A in the next major patch this May? It all depends on what the first dev blog is, because one of the first early dev blogs for 177 was the Challenger, right? So that was a big giveaway on what else was going to come in that update. We haven't seen any dev blogs yet. We haven't really known any information apart from we're getting some kind of production version of the Leopard 2 sometime this year. So we know it's this year. So it's either going to be May, or it's going to be the summer updates, or one of the winter updates. Normally they do about 2 in the winter. My guess would be summer, but it is possible it comes out in May. But it really depends on what comes alongside it. I don't want just the Leopard 2 released and nothing else. Especially, obviously, depending on which version they put in. If it's like the AV, or like something like that, I think it'll be alright. But they've already said a production version, so that might be a bit of an issue. Ooh, there we go. Will they add modern IFVs alongside the new MBT? I just have to make sure what IFV means. Infantry fighting vehicle, okay. I mean, they've already added the BMP in one form or the other. They've also added in the Baglet Panzer, which is kind of like an IFV. The Striker, the Striker and the Swingfire, they're technically IFVs. I would like to see more of them. Scorpion would be cool. Bradley would be cool. I'm sure there are many others from every other nation that you could add as well. And they would definitely be a nice addition to the game. Have you ever been in a cockpit? I have been all around a Halifax bomber, and I've also been all around a Lancaster bomber when I was younger. So I've been all over those two aircraft. I've seen a lot more aircraft, but I haven't been in their cockpits or been around them. There we go. Do you think they'll add artillery to this game like in World of Tanks? No, not in the same form. There's a lot of artillery pieces they could add, which would be really good, fun shotgun tanks. Like, I mean, technically we already have a lot of them, right? So, Su-152, Su-122, Sturmpanzer, just as a few examples. But there are some others which would be interesting to do. The Bishop being one, the Priest, of course. Basically American and British ones with big guns with HE shells that you could lob over stuff. I think that would be really fun to do. I mean, why not? They were vehicles, they were built. They don't have to have a mechanic like World of Tanks. They can just follow alongside the other SPGs we have, similar to the Su-152 or the ISU-122. Which were, well, maybe not the Su-122, but the Su-152 was mainly used as an artillery piece alongside stuff like the Su-122. So was the Su-76 as well, which is kind of funny. But it does mean that it is a possibility in the future, and I would personally like to see it, I really would. There's a lot of cool vehicles, even something like a truck with a massive Japanese mortar on the back, in my opinion, would be a really cool thing to have. Because if you've ever seen them, how big their mortars were, I mean, my god, would it be fun to just lob them over hills. TEC, if you do challenges, here's one, a full Leopard whole lineup, Leo 1, Leo A1, A1, Leo 2K, Gepard. Yeah, that would be kind of cool. I never really thought about that. What kind of vehicles will they be replacing? The 105. Okay, I've already gone into this. SP1C, Leo 1 prototype. I want 90mm version. Do I think they should nerf the P47? I think they should take away its air spawn. I don't think they need to do anything else to it. Make people be much more... make people play much more patient in it, very much like the old P51s, and instead of the meta being defined around it, you can define it around something else. Do you think the T100 will be added? I'm just going to make sure which one the T100 is at this juncture. Oh, this thing. I mean, why not? Like, they were built. I mean, we already have, like, the SMK, right, and the T35, so why not just add the T100? It's not as if, like, it's armored out of control, and all it has is a 76 on it, and it's the L11, so it's the same gun as the KV-1 L11, which isn't a very good gun, and then the 45 on it. But we already have 2 land tanks that the Russians made. Why not make a third? Maybe make just an actual tree one instead of a premium one. Like, this could be the one that they put in the tree, which would be nice. It's kind of sad that this type of design kind of died out, really. How old am I? 24. How long have you been playing War Thunder for? That's a very good question. Probably about 4.5 years. There's this really cool thing you can do if you want to search up a player or anything on the War Thunder website. There we go. There's my account, and it will see when they registered, which is pretty much when I started playing. So, registration date 10th of the 7th, 2013. So we're coming up to 5 years on the game, which is pretty cool. But yeah, you can see all my stats there when it comes to how long I've played and, you know, all that stuff. But yeah, so basically 4.5 years. Very close, well, 4.75 years is pretty much how long I've played this game. I think I started just after Alpha. What got you into War Thunder? Already talked about that. What would make you uninstall War Thunder? That is an interesting question. If there was more, or a hell of a lot more emphasis on modern tanks and they decided just to kind of sweep away the World War II stuff, a more emphasis on random battles instead of scheduled operations, if they decided to take away the single-player content, if they decided to heavily push certain pay-to-play models, like maybe a subscription or something like that, if they decided to go away from the realistic angle and try and make it much more about what would be the word? Much more arcadey in its sense by adding in a lot of paper vehicles. I would not be happy with that. So yeah, that would suck if they did any of those things. Like if they just decided one day just to go crazy with the amount of paper vehicles. So if they started adding in like the ME262s with the upgraded engines which never existed, if they started adding in like all of the Blom and Voss stuff, I would pretty much just uninstall the game straight away. Because I like the realistic experience. I understand a lot of people just want as many vehicles as possible. But I personally, that's why another reason I don't really like Rank 6, because we don't have full data on it, so they're making, they're not making certain parts up, they're just working with ranges instead of actual data. Do you think they should remove ULQ? No, I don't think so. It isn't as easy as just getting a better PC, because I know a lot of people who financially can't do that, especially a lot of younger people, and the fact that they're able to play the game is much better. Also, with the amount of the pricing right now of certain PC components is kind of insane, and I think having the game open to as many people as possible is a good idea in the long run. I don't think they should remove it. Let's see. Alright, so we had a nice long conversation about ULQ. So you can go and read that on the forum if you want. Favorite premium GF and AF vehicles, which are buyable. Ooh, that's a toughie. Let's think. Because I don't really run a lot of premium vehicles, really. Or at least I don't think I do. I suppose for Air Forces, it would have to be the Boomerang. The Boomerang is, you get a Mark 1 and a Mark 2 model in game. One of the only issues with it is it's kind of overshadowed by the fact that it's at its tier right now. There's been a lot of stuff added to the game, which has pretty much put the Boomerang in a bad place. But I still think it's a fun vehicle to use. So Boomerang and also the BTD. The BTD is one of the only attackers in game which can actually be able to fight, you know? So I would probably say BTD as well. But mainly the Boomerang, if you want to just have a bit of fun with mates. Ground Forces is an interesting one, because, as I said, I don't really use a lot of them unless they gift stuff. If I was going to have to pick one, I don't think that's available anymore to buy. So it's going to have to be the M4A5. And the main reason for that is just because it's a Canadian vehicle and it looks funny. A lot of Ground Forces premiums, I know a lot of people talk a lot about the STRV, the RU251, the IS6, but for me, I don't actually use a lot of Ground Forces premiums. I generally just use normal tree stuff or gift vehicles like the Type 65 KV220. So yeah, it's either going to be the T14 or it's going to be the M4A5. How long does it take you to edit? Really depends. On videos which, like my what I'd like to see in game videos, we're talking about maybe 2 to 3 hours. With a video like this, it'll take me about 20 minutes to edit, but to actually process the video, it'll probably take me a few hours. So yeah, it really depends on the video. Basically, the more editing you see, the longer it's going to take me. The longest it's ever taken me to edit a video is maybe 4 or 5 hours, because once I start editing, I don't want to stop, so I want to get it all done in one sitting. I generally, nowadays, don't edit that much, though. When I do, like, proposed videos and stuff, editing does go into it a little bit more. Oh my god, people. When you ask, is my cam still working? Matrix, you, sir, are a god. I'm very, very happy with this. Oh my god. Is this just a way to advertise yourself, Shimakaze? Oh my god. I mean, as a last question, I think it's not bad. I'm guessing this is a thumbnail that he's going to use. It does look pretty OP, to be quite honest. That's the only issue with using Discord. People get distracted by conversations. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Oh, we might as well just see who won the giveaway. Who won the giveaway? Lofty Sentry won the Endless Legend giveaway. Lovely stuff. So we have giveaways every week on the Discord. Next week it will probably be something like Endless Space. And yeah, it's basically a game giveaway every week. So yeah, this one was won by Lofty Sentry. So well done to him. And that's pretty much the end of the Q&A. If you do have any other questions, either save them for the 8K one, or ask them in the comment section here, and I will answer them for you in short form instead of long form like this. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.